Welcome to the Nipissing Township Museum Board. This lovely Wednesday, October the 5th. So we will call the meeting to order. Do we have any declaration of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to, would somebody like to accept the agenda? Chris and Steve, okay. I'm assuming everybody read the previous minutes. Would somebody like to accept and second them? Gladys? Mary?
Yeah.
Okay. So we will dive right into it with standing agenda items. We've got first on here finance for sales, and I think we talked about marketing last year for, or last meeting for any ideas. So I'll leave that to you, Jillian.
So for the revenue, I've got, because it's in the season, I have it broken down month by month, but then I just have the sort of totals. You guys want the totals?
Sure.
So sales for the year, well, revenue for the year amounts to 10,000.
Can you just slow down 1 minute, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
So say this is sales or revenue?
Revenue including sales, donations.
Okay.
That kind of stuff.
Okay.
Anything that went through the till of the museum for me. So $10,333.33. Just keep in mind that 2,000 of those donations were specifically slotted
Yes.
for conservation for the artifacts. So break down into sort of the different categories. There's $2,653.30 for candy, $342.62 for frozen yogurt. Yep.
Could you just?
I can send
Okay,
you all the
if you could-
numbers
okay, send-
afterwards.
Yes, that would be helpful because I can't keep up with how fast you're rattling it off. Thank you very much.
Get an idea or
It would be very inaccurate
to
if
break
I.
down.
Thank you, Jillian. Sorry to interrupt.
No
you.
worries. So for beverages, it was $178.50. For gifts, which sort of includes everything other than anything in the specific category. The revenue was $234.61. For books, it was $224.90. For clothing, it was $519.73. For donations, it was $3,655.20. So if you exclude the $2,000 donation, it's close to $1,600. Other, which is almost exclusively events, I believe, is $2,524.47. And so for the visitor statistics, just compare the revenue, we had a total of 847 people come through the museum for 81 days being open this summer.
If it was candy sold at an event, would that be under the event or would that be under
It's
candy?
under candy. What goes under event are the things that we bring in special for the events.
Yep.
In part.
And this is all gross revenue?
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, no, I just realized I could have probably done that for my financial comparison.
Okay,
But I didn't, I'm sorry.
that's okay. Yeah. Did the ladies' t-shirts come in, Jillian, yet?
I haven't seen them.
Okay, not in, Chris?
Not yet. All right. So do you want me to keep going with the report or talk about marketing first?
You can talk about the marketing, sure.
So I mean, in terms of the Facebook page, it's been working pretty well. We use it in our Meta Business Suite, which provides insights and also allows me to schedule the posts again. So if people want an idea of our audience on Facebook, have that information. We have about 114 followers on the page currently. And I wasn't sure what else we were expecting for marketing.
Yeah, I think that was more for us to talk about if we had any ideas. So It might be early for that unless anybody has ideas. Something we could mull over the winter, maybe.
I do have one thing to mention. And simply part of this is just the donation I went through. There was some stuff about the 1974 centennial celebration. It's gonna be coming up on 150 years since the Rosso Road was opened.
Oh, when is that coming up for? 2024?
So that might be a really cool idea to tie in a road trip and collaborate with museums.
Yes.
Line, and that would probably include market.
Perfect. That's 150 years, you said?
Yeah, I mean, the plaque sort of has 1873, and then it took a couple of years for it to be winter ready, but 1974 was when they celebrated the centennial. So,
Good to know.
Yes.
They sure did.
We can remember all that.
Yeah. But don't, when you say take a road trip, don't say down the Rosso Road.
No, but there are parts of it that you can reach, and there's other museums and sort of nearby towns that it would be interesting
Yeah,
to collaborate.
I think that's a
Absolutely,
great
yeah, I think it's a great idea too.
Yeah.
And again, for marketing, that idea that I had with,
Yeah,
you know, getting a bunch of museums together and doing the stamping, I think that may help also. So if we have, do we have anything else we want to add to this?
we should, if we're going to do that, we should get a hold of those suggestions of those other museums now before they get into after Christmas and start looking at their advertising and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Anybody want to take that task on?
On the other museum.
I can do that.
Sure, okay. Which ones would we like to contact? Then we should give
Oh,
Brenda,
we start close and then work our way out, I
well,
guess.
certainly Commanda.
Do we have a listing of all the museums in the area?
Not specifically.
Oh, okay.
We have brochures from a few.
It would be easy enough to find,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can just.
Like there's,
Google it, I'm sure I can
there's the
find
North Bay, and then there's also the one up at the air base.
Yeah.
Yes,
No.
one
it. No, that's not an official.
museum, okay.
But that doesn't mean that it's not worth collaborating.
Well, the problem is, do they have insurance? Do they have,
We can ask them.
yeah, but to have them included with, like all the other ones are recognized actual museums that are funded by the government
Or by the municipality.
or by their municipality.
It could, instead of sort of listing museums, you could list attractions. That way it doesn't really matter, but it's still including.
Like, I have no idea. Is it, that's in an
It's unorganized.
unorganized, has it ever been, the building ever been
Who knows, it looks.
safety?
Well, you could look into that.
You know, like all that kind of stuff.
It's out in Loring, no.
Oh,
the Loring one.
Yeah, the one to just the Argyle area just opened up.
Okay,
this year.
oh, okay.
I haven't been there.
Oh, yeah. I wanna go.
I do have a few details about that at the museum. The owner stopped by. and some-
No, well, then there you go. We'll just contact and see what. kind of info. They must have something if they're open to the public. You would assume.
If you put a pamphlet, Julian.
Well,
but where they are, we don't.
It's not a pamphlet. I have some handwritten notes, if someone told me where it was.
Could you just email?
Yes, I can. I was writing notes. I remember.
Thank you.
Okay, so Brenda's gonna look into that, the other museums. I can help you with it too if you need help,
Okay,
Brenda,
I'll
just
just
let me
see.
know.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on marketing? Okay, let's move on then to manager's report, Julian.
Just an update on the collections. So the community center storage, I have had a look through and taken photographs, so that someone can periodically check them for nothing's been
We have a
moved or
record of what's
taken.
down there, okay.
So a cursory examination of the items showed that most have been given an accession number, except for the bankers boxes, which contain multiple items, the box was given an accession number, but the items inside the boxes, some of them have their own numbers and some of them don't. Based on the way things were put together, I have no reason to suppose that these items all arrived as a lot. And even if they had, they should be given individual numbers. In any case, giving the box an accession number is meaningless.
Okay.
So that was the only major problem I found with the numbering down there. However, I did notice that there's quite a bit of dust, and it's worth noting that that's not exclusively a storage area. There's also a working area. It would probably be a good idea to have dust covers installed over all the shelving and over the artifacts. So a budget and someone to sew them would be a good idea for next year. Okay. So inventory progress. So this is not cataloging, this is just inventory. This was actually begun starting in 2019. And the church building is nearly completely inventory. The actual cataloging is only about 25% complete. So that will need to be finished next year. The inventory of the storage room is also, or in the office, sorry, is also incomplete. The students have the labeling shelves as they went through them, and labeling the boxes. So we know what's been done. But again, it will have to be picked up again next year. An inventory of the hardware store has not been started, though from what I've seen, it's my understanding that many of the items in that building were cataloged in 2017, 2018 by previous staff. So the next step after these inventories are complete will be to check the existing documentation to see if these items already have an accession number or if they need a complete set of documentation to be created. So for cataloging, items donated this summer that have already been approved by the board have all been cataloged on gift forms and put into the Microsoft Access catalog, including the Jane Russell donation, but we still have a few items just to for approval. And I'll have to finish one the next day. So those also all have photographs which have been saved on the computer, and there will be a very easy guideline for someone to follow, whoever's comes in this position next to find them. So there's a few items that still need approval by the board from Jane Russell. So there's
Instead of going through each one, which ones would you suggest we not accept, Jillian?
the newspaper clippings about the Halifax riots that Keith Brewer participated in. I know Dan Bowman is interested in them,
Okay.
and there's no, as far as I know, no mention of Keith himself in the article. He just was there. and
Okay.
did them. There's,
So, excuse me, so do you mean we should keep that or?
no, I wouldn't.
Oh, okay, you wouldn't,
Yeah,
okay,
I asked
sorry,
her
I
to
didn't
give
hear.
us a listing of what she thinks we should not keep.
Okay, okay, I just wanted to be clear.
Everybody looked at the pictures that she sent us.
The other one I would probably reject is the plaster of Paris School Art Project by Steve Moore.
Yeah.
And then everything else, I would probably recommend accepting.
What were those big baskets, Jillian?
They were onion baskets. They were already.
Were they, we already put, okay. I only had one issue, and that was with the native items from the store.
Yes.
I would suggest we not accept them. I know that back in the day, it was quite appropriate to sell that kind of stuff, but it would be considered cultural appropriation today. And some people may be offended, even if we know better today, even if we put something on there, these were acceptable then, they're not today. So my suggestion is we do not accept them.
Are they real?
No, they probably made in China or Taiwan.
Yeah.
I think they were.
Yeah, they're,
They still have the stickers on.
yeah, so,
I have dolls similar, very
Yeah.
similar to one of those.
yeah, I have one too, but I can tell you right now that if some native people are gonna go in there and they will find it offensive. It's one thing to show their craft work, the craftsmanship, but I mean, they're depicting the natives of very dark skin with these white buckskin suits on that they never wore back then. And it's the way somebody else that made those sold them for the tourist industry, you know, their idea of what the natives were. So it's just not acceptable. I would suggest.
No, it's
not
definitely not acceptable. The only reason I would argue for the acceptance is to show how differently they were treated
Mhm.
versus one time period versus another. But if it's never intended that they go on display or
Yeah.
that is explained, then I would agree with no point in accepting.
I wouldn't accept them. I would suggest we give them back to the family. If everybody else agrees.
Yeah.
The next thing is flag from Knox United Church. I called a few more people and I could find no further information available either to confirm or deny that the flag once belonged to the Orange Lodge. Would you guys still like to accept it?
Is it really old? Would you?
Hold on.
Did Nora Beth say that it was, I can't remember, she said it was her flag or it just came from the church?
It was in a box of Remembrance Day items that have been in Knox United Church since we've been there.
Is it a linen flag or is it,
I can't be sure without doing the burn test or looking at it.
It almost felt burlap to me, I don't know.
It could be wool, it could be linen, it could be another natural fiber. I'm pretty sure it's natural fiber. It is stitched rather than printed. Sorry, I have more details about it from the last meeting.
So what was the connection with the,
Flag?
yeah,
Well, when Nora Beth brought it to me, she said that it had been over there for, she'd had it forever in a box.
at the United Church?
I wasn't sure if she meant at her home or at the church, but obviously she's told Jillian from the
At
church.
the United Church?
Yes, and she didn't know anything about it. It found it there when they were taking everything out of the church because it had been sold. And so she thought the museum.
But there was no connection to the Orange Lodge.
No, so Nora was talking to someone in Restool who, I don't know how the conversation went, but he suggested it might have been from the Orange Lodge because they had a flag similar to that in the Orange Lodge at Restool, or from the Orange Lodge at Restool. And so I called up 5 or 6 people asking if they knew anything, and nobody could tell me anything.
I couldn't remember what the so-called connection was.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing that you haven't done is go up to university and get the Orange Lodge papers out of the archives.
It probably wouldn't be able to confirm whether or not this.
No. That's the only place I know that there's Orange Lodge stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I said, last meeting, we had quite a few Union Jacks
Okay.
of various provenances.
So your suggestion is we give it back?
I would.
Yeah.
Or I would suggest the accession of others, but I think it's simple just to give it back since we don't know where it's from.
I always have to keep in mind states.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay, so just a bit of a wrap up, sort of some of the summer activities and our last event. So throughout the summer, we had scavenger hunts, mystery objects, photograph matching activity, which was one or other of these things, where multiples were available for visitors to participate. We're about 75% of our open days this year. And for each activity that people filled out, they got their name entered in the end of season draw. So we had 28 entries in total. which wasn't a humongous amount, but it was still pretty good. And to be honest, only about 50% of the visitors who participated in the mystery objects sort of activity actually filled in the form. So there was a little bit more participation in that sense. And then often the family group would do one form together. So in total, it was probably more like 60 to 80 people who actually participated, which is great.
Great.
The mystery objects proved to be the most popular throughout a range of age groups. And sometimes we had 4, sometimes we had 10. But it was a great sort of activity for the students to be able to put together, because they could find the objects, they could do the research mostly on their own. And it did require a little bit of extra time, but it seemed to have been worth it. And then information gathered during this process, all these objects ended up with a little card as information about them at the end that will stay there on the slide. So anyone who sort of filled up with the activity sheets were entered in the season draw, and that was drawn at the Fall Festival and Market. So we had about 85 people come to the gift shop, but I think there were more people who came to the event that didn't necessarily go into the gift store. So I'm wondering if the total attendance was closer to about 100, not including the vendors and volunteers.
Excuse me, you're talking about Fall Festival now?
Yes,
Oh,
sorry.
thank you. Okay.
So for revenue specific to this event, sales from the garden or donations from the garden stall amounted to $102.75. The carnival games that we had set up, one of the ring toss tables was popular. The rest had no interest, but we got $18.75 from that. The gift shop sales that particular day were $416.71, and that was with a 50% discount on both candy and frozen yogurt. So pretty good. And then the total revenue from the day was $751.91. So the profit amounted to $451.91, and the only costs were for the band. I didn't include the initial cost for the Heritage Garden since it was set up as an exhibit, and this was just sort of a side bonus. Yeah, we ran out of frozen yogurt during the events, and we're down to very little candy and very few cold drinks. And as requested, I did an inventory of the candy. I have a list here of exactly what's left over. If anyone's interested, but the cost would have amounted to about $61.51 for us to purchase.
And if I may interrupt, I'm going to make the suggestion that we donate that to the fire department for the Halloween party.
So for the vendors, we only ended up having 5, 6 including the garden stall. 3 canceled, but 2 of those said they would be interested in attending next year. And 3 vendors. I guess it would have been 1 vendor didn't show up at all. And it sounds like 2 of our vendors accidentally ended up at the park trunk sale, unfortunately. Most people brought tents. A few of them didn't, but we were able to find some spots in the shade, which worked out pretty well. I did originally plan to have vendors to start setting up at 10 a.m., which gave them about an hour, but many arrived between 9 and 9:45 to set up. So I would probably plan for that next year. And then we had some people ask me about coffee, so we brewed a pot and sold it for 50 cents. Worked out well, but again, the blacksmith was very popular as always. Actually, that reminds me to call he's making a little coat hanger for the gift shop.
Nice.
Yeah. museum buildings and gift shop had cited students and visitors for most of the event. And I had a chance to talk to all the vendors and they said they would be interested in attending a similar event again next year. Perfect, which is very encouraging.
Sounds like the Fall Fest was a real success.
We did well, in terms of, yes, and media attention. We had an article right today.
Yeah, it was in the.
Yeah. I was in touch with the person who wrote it, and he's interested in hearing about, news from the museum next year, which is great. And then I think because we were looking for vendors, people who would normally share the museum's Facebook posts, we're sharing them to people that they might be interested. So I think we got a lot more. We spread the word a little bit more that way than most of our Facebook posts would get. Yeah. There was, because of the health unit applications being required for anyone selling food, we didn't get any food vendors at the museum. It was just the museum's produce. And I was wondering about next year, instead of asking home gardeners to put in a stall, have competitions for the most interesting shaped vegetable, or like have different categories like naughty vegetables,
Cute, yeah.
or like the largest or whatever. And then because people aren't selling them, for, application. Or other heritage and garden related things like a corn shucking speed competition, or even like shuck these the fastest, that kind of thing. Or having a craft competition.
Jillian, how much money was in the veggie jar?
It's $102. I think someone came after the event and put a little bit more in the jar.
But I knew there was lots, like,
Yeah.
because it was mostly bills, it was all bills, it wasn't anything else.
Yeah, it was pretty good. There's still a lot of kale left over next year. I would not cut as
Yeah.
much all.
You're not gonna plant as much next year.
No. But I think again, a lot of people in this area probably just have gardens, and so,
But it's still wet, it's still,
yeah,
more garlic,
yeah.
everybody likes garlic.
And it doesn't go that fast, right?
Yeah.
So that was all I had about the Fall Fest. Unless anybody had any questions. So actually, there's one more event happening. I have a group of school kids coming on Friday morning.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
There's a group of about 20 homeschool students from about junior kindergarten to about grade 12.
Wow.
Um,
Where are they coming from?
I'm not sure. I didn't ask.
I know there's a.
Well, I think because they were homeschooled. there's
Okay.
no-
Well,
Yeah.
there is I know through the library, there is
Yeah.
a homeschool, I don't know if you call it an association,
Okay.
especially of which is,
Okay.
Is that through Lily or?
I have no idea.
The organizer's name
I
is
know
Tiffany,
at the library.
and she's happened to mention that she's seen the museum dragon by.
Oh, perfect. Great.
So. Yeah, if anyone happens to want to volunteer, that would be great, but, no pressure.
When's that?
Friday morning.
Oh,
So they'll be here for about 10 a.m. to about noon. So. Yeah.
what was your last day again, Jillian? I can't remember.
This Friday.
That's Friday.
Oh, it is Friday. Wow. So you're gonna have to run this through and then sheet everything up?
Well, I mean, putting the sheets on is not too bad. Actually, the students packed up some of the displays that were in the trunks, so those
Okay.
are here in case. I'm not gonna open those up again, no. It's gonna be a little tight. I'll probably be here tomorrow.
Oh, dear, okay.
It's okay. But everything else, like all the outdoor artifacts, they're tarped. The motors have been moved inside. Again, if anyone's free tomorrow wants to help out, we'll have to move the motors into a less dangerous place to be while the kids are there.
Or burden it off if you don't have the help, just.
I can't really, like, because of the way the hardware store is
Oh, I
set up, it's, like during all the hours. Also, there is no extra space in the community center storage for the items, the big items in the hardware store. It's not practical.
Worst case scenario, if you can't move them, just tour them through the other building.
That's what I might have to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, just tell them that it's late in the season and we're already closed.
They already know, I did,
No.
I did let her know, because I was worried
The
about it.
most interesting stuff anyway, I think, is in the church, so.
Yes. The only other thing I have today is, so I know that in a previous meeting, we discussed adding items to the store, however, and it was sort of decided you're not interested, however, someone brought to my attention, a history booklet, very similar to ones that we already sell, specifically about the Nipissing Rosso Road. And certainly if the museum board for 150th anniversary of the Rosso Nipissing Road wishes to sort of make a big event about that, it might be nice to sell these books in store. If they're ordered individually, it's $25 plus shipping. However, I'm not sure about the wholesale price. I have not yet inquired because I wasn't sure. Anyone's interested.
Did you send Brenda that information?
Yeah.
So who authored this? You know,
I know how to find it online, but I didn't write down the author's name. No, that would have been smart. Sorry. It was one of the visitors who happened to have the book. Came by and let me borrow it for her.
it wasn't Andrew Hind.
I honestly can't remember.
Well, if that's for 24, you probably find out there'll be more than that book out.
The only one that I saw on the website was that one.
Yeah, now,
Yeah.
Yeah, the closer you get to 2024.
yeah, wait till next fall. You know,
Be nice to have one of those authors in,
Hmm.
you know, and talk about your book too.
well, Andrew Hind is another book on the go, but I don't know exactly what the topic is. He writes about this.
That sounds familiar. I think he once wrote an article about our events in 2019.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think we have a card. I think, to the work board.
Is that everything for you, Jill?
Yeah, I've written down some sort of event ideas, but I think that's later on the agenda.
Okay. When we're talking about up on, right after the flag, we talked about that retirement quilt. Did you find any information about it?
No.
Okay, I did speak to Bernard Goddard. Okay, somebody suggested it might be new Mary, that she might, that his mom may have made it. And he's not sure. Actually, I just spoke to him tonight. But I did get some more interesting info from him, and that is that he's also penning a book for the Alcest Church's 100th anniversary on Alcest Road. So he's doing the Alcest Road area and including the native connection. So he stopped during COVID, and he'll catch up again, but this is going to happen in 2027. So he will be donating a book to us on this, and he told me some of the stories, and it sounds like a fascinating read. So cool. Looking forward to that. And perhaps for 2027, I know it's way off, we might be able to work something with the Alcest Church. So that's all I have on the quote. Okay, so Jillian's already gone on, told us about the Fall Festival update. Next is the July 2023 events, Pie Fest versus Strawberry Festival.
And I did have our financial comparison.
Okay.
Which I did send out as well, if anyone wants fresh on numbers, just let me know.
Can I just say something? I had a look over, thanks for doing this, Jill. I had a look over and I just don't think that we're comparing apples to oranges.
No, I had trouble
Because
finding
at the
all the information.
Yeah, well, no. I just want to finish. Because for two of the events in 2022, this year, and 2019, you have the statistics on the revenues from the gift store sales. Okay, and that was entered in as profit, but it wasn't done for the 4 other years. So in my mind, that's not what we're comparing. We're comparing the event itself, profits from the event, and you don't have the information for the other 4. So in my mind, those other 2, 2019, 2022, those gift source sales should be taken out so that we're comparing everything on the same field, because right now we're not.
Makes sense.
So basically it'd be 1372 at the bottom and 881 at the bottom.
Actually, it'd be 579 for this year, and then 2019 would be 1372. Because we had the expenses for 307, right?
Yeah.
And she said the total revenue was basically $1,100, but the revenue was actually only $880. So you subtract 307.
Oh, right,
from that,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. I did see that too.
So then everything's on it's just so everything's on the same playing field, because you're not making a
Would you like to
comparison.
review this and send it out before I leave on Friday?
Well, I think we want to discuss it tonight, so that's why I'm bringing it forward.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first column this year would be about 580. And then 2019 would be around 1370. Okay.
Basically 881 minus 307.
Yeah. I just did that in my head. It's not exact.
So the 580 is for 20,
For this year.
2022, and the 1370 is for 2019?
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are both the high best.
So
Well,
this,
yeah.
yeah, so this year would be 573.51. 2019 would be,
It's just 1372. There was no
Yeah,
expense.
it's
Yeah,
just the top.
yeah.
Okay, gives us a better idea. of what we're- Versus Strawberry Festival, okay. So,
So 2019 was the Strawberry Festival.
2017.
2017 was the last.
2019 was pie.
Okay.
There was, as far as I can tell, there was no Pie Fest or Strawberry Social in 2017. Pie Fest started in 2019.
so then 2017 would have been, do we have a year
There's
with
no-
nothing?
I didn't find any information for either event.
No.
I don't think so either.
No, we went,
Surprising.
when they canceled
The berries, yeah,
the berry deal, the next year we had pie.
yes.
I agree.
So 2017 would have been Strawberry Social.
I believe so. I'm not.
Yeah. And then
the next one would have-
I could
the
go
next year
back
would
to
have
the
been high.
minutes and
Yeah,
look.
let's look in the minutes. I guess,
Yeah.
okay.
My thoughts on this is, if you look at Strawberry Social, we made basically, less than $900 is the most we made. I think personally, this year's profits are skewed for a couple of reasons. First, we had to make some of the pies, so we had costs involved, which we're not used to. But second of all, in my mind, a lot of people still weren't doing things because of COVID.
It's true.
And so I don't think this year personally is a good indicator of what we can actually do with projects.
This is our sort of coming out year of
Yes.
that. So
Yeah,
we're
like
not back yet.
Yeah, because I know personally, I mean, I'm just starting to do more now, but that was, I can't remember, Julie, was that in July? Yeah, thank you. That was back in July. I know personally, I was not doing very much back then. And I think this is my own personal feeling
No, I
that
agree.
the profits are reflected.
Yes, and there was also something on that day, because I don't think that was the regular day we had other years.
I agree with you, Mary, that I think we need to be looking at what else is going on whatever day we choose, if we can find that out,
Well, like everybody else, they pick a day and it goes like that.
Yeah, you don't have any control over it because when you pick your day, somebody else can pick theirs
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
after, but
See,
if you
yeah.
know ahead of time, if
Yeah.
For
there's 10 other
instance,
events.
years ago, we had a History Alive Day at the museum in Powassan. Only somebody in Mattawa decided to start a music festival weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 We started first, but that was
Yeah.
just a bigger event because of what it was. And they don't change their date.
Yeah.
They never change their date it is the same week, like it's around the 19th or 20th of July every year.
Yeah.
They don't change their date, which we did with some of these this year.
This year we did it, I don't think we should have.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Should have stuck with our.
because we already, like now, if we went and had something on the weekend of the 19th or 20th of July, you know what, nobody's gonna be here because they're all in Mattawa.
I agree. But
Yeah.
if you look at the calendar of the big events,
Yeah.
those are planned well ahead of time. I agree.
It's
Well-
the smaller events in the area. But then again, smaller events in the area attract people out to the area. And
That's
smaller
right. They do
events,
a tour,
they'll
yes.
hit 3 or 4 smaller events in a day, so you could actually capitalize on that.
Yeah, if we marketed it properly. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I look at it as we're making $500, $600, $800 for a day that we've been told takes up a lot of time and energy of people, while we have 25% of the church cataloged. Is it worth it to have an event every month doing all this when we're just falling further and further behind on cataloging? We know that the event days, if we're focusing on these food things, we're saying, oh, we can only do church visits like on the hour. We're not actually doing anything that's remotely related to historical and museum. Like, I wonder if that's taking away from there. Like, we lost what, $50,000 this year as a museum, and we're talking about trying to get $500 back doing food. I think that's a little obscure.
I'll agree with you partway about that. The other thing is having special events. It's difficult to get people to visit the museum. We can do all the cataloging we want, but we can't get visitors in there. And part of having those events is to introduce people to the museum. So it is a form of promotion. And you're right, maybe we shouldn't focus so much on how much money we're making, just finding an event that gets them in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not against events in there, but we talked about having, what, 4 or 5 events this year. Every month we were doing something. And our staff was just running to go to the next event. I don't think anyone was like properly, like, here's our full plan of what we're gonna do. Here's our thing. I think we shut down some of the events, make it bigger events,
Well-
better organized later in the season when we had the time to properly market, properly get them going. Like we saw what happened with Fall Fest. We probably had the most people at Fall Fest because we had all summer of everything leading up towards hey, there's something gonna be happening at the end of the season. When our staff had been there all summer working towards that.
I do agree with you, Chris, because it is, I think you're both correct, it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
That if we, if we concentrate on a couple events until, let's say, the cataloging is done, then once that's done, then try and maybe add another one the following year, and then one every month, or 4 as we did.
Can I ask you a question? What museum did you go and see this year?
I saw the Magneto one in the first fall.
And how many times have you been there?
I've never been to either one before.
So when are you gonna go back? Not this year.
Well, if I'm back for a hike in the area, that's why I was there. I will probably go back, but yeah, I get what you're saying, yeah.
Most people do not, if they go to a museum, they do not go 3 and 4 times a summer. And with our population here, we need them to come 3 or 4 times a summer. And the only way you can have that is to have a different event on.
Yeah.
To bring them out for that day.
Mhm.
Because they will leave something here.
Yeah,
I mean, for what purpose though? Like, what is the purpose of selling a pie to someone at the museum? Is that actually promoting our history or promoting anything?
No, but it is going to pay some of the bills.
And I think what I took from what you were saying, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, that we pull back next year so that the focus can be on the cataloging, but that's not where we're going.
Well, for one thing, you need is older students.
I agree there 100%.
You need people. Those were children
Mhm.
that were here this year.
I just want to say though, that they did do a good job.
Oh, I'm sure you treated
Yeah,
them well.
they
I'm not
did.
saying
Yeah.
that you didn't.
yeah.
But I think we're getting off topic.
Yes, we are. Yes, okay. So anyway,
It's, you have to make up your mind. Do you want people to come so they'll spend money and offset some of the expenses we have? Or don't you? Do you want to live completely on Nipissing taxes?
yeah, well, I think the point is to, the event brings in people.
Mhm.
I think Chris made a good point, $500 or $600 of pies is not a lot of money. It's not gonna offset it's not really gonna make a big impact on the taxes, but it is gonna make a big impact on how many people are coming through our museum. It's getting people interested in it, without those events, I don't think we'll have as many people.
You won't.
So that's why, we don't have to have a pie fest or strawberry. I think the Fall Fest sounds like it was a success. We could go ahead with that, and,
What I think is that the true value of the Pie Fest still made more money than the Strawberry Festival.
mhm.
I just think this year was an outlier
Yes,
because of COVID. I personally think the Pie Fest is worthwhile, as is the Fall Festival, but I would defer to you, Jillian.
Okay, I want to say a couple things. One about Pie Fest. I don't think the health unit applications are going to change. I think you're going to have to keep budgeting for that cost of pies. Because unless we find new people to volunteer to make pie.
I think that is a possibility. I think that was one of those, things that came out of left field that was unexpected. And so you had to deal with it last minute, whereas, as Chris said, if you're planning well ahead, you would have known about that well ahead.
But
Of
most
time.
volunteers just point blank said, well, I can't do that because I am making stages and it's just too complicated to do it that way for them.
I will say personally, I didn't even make a pie this year, and usually I make about 2 or 3 of them. And I still would have done that, right? So, I don't know, that's just my opinion. I don't think I think it was a curveball that you got at the last minute, and it can be dealt with properly. I believe if you call them ahead of time and you can get more people, like, all of us here instead of making 2 pies, maybe we're making 3 or 4 pies. So
It's
you
not gonna
get
make any
double.
difference if they don't want to get their water tested. I didn't get my water tested. I wasn't about to. do
Yeah, but
that.
I'm saying people like me who do test their water, right? I'd be willing to make 4 or 5 pies because my pie crust recipe makes 5 pies.
Yeah, It's actually easier to make pies than it is to make two.
It is, so, yeah, so anyways,
I just, it's kind of a weird model to have, to be spending your time asking people for donations of things that you then essentially sell back to them. And it's, yes, pie is something that was made, there's a lovely story about Elizabeth B. and her family making loads of pies for incoming people into this area when they're newly arrived, great. But I think the balance for the events, yes, you want to bring people in, yes, we want them to spend money, but instead of it being about the food, you can make it about historical things. So it can be demonstrations, it can be sort of more participatory things, and bring that into an event like Pie Fest, so it has a historical connection. There are lots of sort of craft skills, like the kind of skills you would need or you would accumulate as a pioneer, like very basic carpentry, sewing, like hand stitching, knitting, crochet, how to light a fire without a lighter, like different things like that, bowl turning.
I thought we tried to bring that in this year with our Heritage Day, and Heritage Day didn't really go that well this year.
Well, a couple of things again there too. We changed the time.
We didn't have any really like
And that
things
was,
that people, activities were participating in. We had Jeff Fournier doing a presentation in the church. And it was unfortunate that we didn't get very many people for that.
But see, I
Wasn't that
guess
the
my
day-
extrapolation is that that's a historical event that he was discussing, and it didn't bring the people in.
Yes, but it was a presentation. It wasn't something where kids are, getting into an activity and doing something. Like it was just a lecture essentially.
I hear what you're saying, but I still think, like, you look at the success of the carnival games, and the kids weren't really into that, but
That was a very last minute thing because we weren't sure what was gonna happen Fall Fest. And so it didn't get advertised really. And that was my fault, Alba. But we were just at the very last minute trying to scrounge for extra things that we could do that would interest people.
Perhaps it was just the theme of the Heritage Day.
It was also,
We've had extremely successful Heritage Days.
that day was changed, was it not?
Yes, we
Yes.
changed the
Saying
day.
that
We
It's
did
gotta go back to
something
its
else.
original.
Yeah,
We were going
Yeah,
to
we
work
worked with, we were trying to work with the Recreation Committee because they were going to have a movie that night, and that changed. We had already set our date, so we stuck with it.
I love day too.
wasn't that the day also that they had the corn roast in Resto?
Yep.
And they had fish
It was,
fry and
yeah.
Loring, sirens in the parking
Yeah.
calendar,
So
yeah.
that's another.
Yeah.
We were just
And that
inundated.
Saturday
with-
in the park takes away so much.
Because in the past, for Heritage Day, we have focused on one family from the area, and that's been highly successful, We've had local artists bring their artwork on display, highly successful. When people see the local names. And Heritage Day has, the way I've seen it happen, it has been geared to older family members that come out for the Heritage Day. So, I thought this year with maybe having it with the movie might change it up a bit because the year before wasn't that great. Didn't work. So it's something we're gonna have to work on this winter, what we want for Heritage Day. And again, if we think we can make the Pie Fest work, then, it has been successful. If it draws in people, we have to discuss it. So, but I do think that it's important to have at least 3 events, and I think the Fall Fest has proven to be a good one. throughout the summer,
That's
just,
definitely,
Yeah,
that would
just-
work well.
just to bring people in. You're right, maybe we shouldn't be focusing so much on the money, the amount of money that we're bringing
I
in.
mean, the second we start talking money, anybody who's paying attention knows that we paid about 15% of what we spent this
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
Like, we are losing that conversation every day, shut down the museum.
Yeah.
Like, that's just hands down. Anybody figures that out, shut down the museum. So if we're trying to attract people to where you can buy a pie, that's not gonna make people be like, oh, great, I want to spend my tax dollars on this. So I
Well-
think we need to make sure that even if we're lower numbers,
Mhm.
we have to build that historic, we have to make the museum a museum, not a candy shop.
I have another suggestion. Usually the museum events aren't ticketed to make them inclusive to everyone, and especially to families, which is great. And we do want to attract in that crowd. But it's worth remembering that adults are the one who can actively support the museum financially. So it might be worth introducing an event that sort of caters specifically to an adult crowd, like, and have it ticketed and have other sort of like whatever demo or activity it is, have it be more specific to adults and attracting that kind of crowd. And the other thing would be basically what I'm saying is it might be worth thinking about the events in terms of targeting specific audiences, targeting the adult population, maybe targeting the youth and the younger adult crowds, because they will ultimately end up being the museum supporters in years to come, and then having other events sort of specifically geared towards kids. That might be something that might work a little bit more efficiently. I'm not sure. It's just a suggestion.
Well, it's food for thought. I don't think we're gonna come to any consensus tonight or make any decisions tonight, but I think we need to think about it. We're okay, how we're gonna move forward. Okay, I don't think we should spend any more time on this. So let's move on. I don't think that I certainly don't have any new business. I think I've shared everything with you. Anybody else have anything to add?
I just wanted to mention, because I forgot to mention earlier, I mentioned the Ross and Nipissing Road had its 150th anniversary. The same year will actually be the museum's 50th anniversary.
Or 50th, better to know. Okay. That's 2024.
The Centennial celebrate some documents from the Centennial celebration, and part of what was saying was donations, or Jane Russell's donations.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so next meeting now. I don't know
Do
if
we
we,
exist to have a next meeting?
that's what I'm going to say. I'm not sure.
We're all just proofing.
Well, the new council is coming in November 15th, Chris? Yeah, so do we want to meet in December? Because somebody will be appointed right away, right? Okay,
We haven't had a meeting in December for quite a few
I know.
years, so.
and I
Like,
don't think
this
we
is
should,
usually our last meeting
That's
until
right.
March,
February or March.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Should we just say at the call of the chair?
Mhm.
Whoever the chair
Yeah, let's say whoever the chair will be, they can call the next meeting. And you'll have to stay on top of that, Steve, I'm assuming. Who knows, you could be a counselor too, Chris, so.
What if I'm not a counselor? I'm in the running too, or all in it.
Yeah, I know. But somebody will be chair, so. Okay, so we're gonna leave Steve next.
So part of our annual, or every 4 years, see who wants to stay on the committee.
Oh, yeah.
So is there anyone here that does not wish to stay on the board for the next term of council?
Let's see.
So,
Excellent. That's all I need to know. Okay, we're all staying. Okay.
we usually do set the next meeting though, because it's not until February.
We could make him.
And it's the usual date, it's the first whatever.
Okay, let's do, what is it?
First Monday in February?
No, Wednesday.
Sorry, Wednesday, I'm thinking.
That's the other Monday this week.
Mhm.
Yeah. Library stuff in my head.
First
So Wednesday, February the 1st.
Wednesday, February the 1st. Okay. 2023.
Oh, there.
Chris, how many museum board members should we be having? Are we short one or two?
Short one.
Well, the February one will take care of that, won't it?
It should, yes.
Is it? If it's.
Not if it's you and Chris, it won't. We'll still be short one.
I mean, maybe there's 15 people out there all wanting to be there and the new council appoints none of us. I mean, that's the joy of a new council and a new term and wonderful things that could happen.
Well, we don't have anything written in that says it has to. be.
Yeah, there's a bylaw and then there's a
Yeah, yeah.
resolution.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
And it says that,
No, sorry.
Just February and
so it says that the museum shall be under the management control of the Board of Management consisting of 2 members of council and 5 members.
Okay, so it is 2 members of council.
So we are short one member, so. You know, anybody? Yeah.
We
If
are-
you are, go down
Yeah,
and let's say you, but then
if Chris.
if you're both successful, then, okay,
Then
if
we're
you're
still
not,
short one.
then we won't be short. Okay,
Yeah.
got it, sorry.
You're gonna say that, Chris, if you aren't successful?
So,
Yeah, okay. All right. We'll just wait to see what happens. We can always look for another member if we need it.
Well,
Thanks.
you're good at that. You can probably volunteer the next council, even though you're not on council.
It's- Okay, so we've got our next meeting. Would somebody like to adjourn?
I will.
Brenda and Steve, okay. Good night, everyone. Are we still online? Chris?